Sorry, just chatting to the producer. Producer sounds really posh. There you go. Hello and welcome to another episode of An Echo of Glory. Joining me, as always now, Jake Robson.
Can't get rid of him.
No, can't get rid of it. Well, talking about can't get rid of people. Jake Robson, hello.
Wow.
Straight in. Straight
Boom.
in. Boom.
One to the ribs.
Bang. Right in the kisser. And Gary Diamond, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, it's not, is it?
No, it's not really.
Grey skies.
Yeah, quite literally.
Horrible.
Storm clouds gathering.
The vultures circling.
Before we came on, we've had a lot of comments already on our YouTube comments. They are waiting. They are
baying for blood.
I was going to say they are baying for blood. I'm not going to go through all of them.
Do you know what it's like? It's like the bit in the greyhound race.
When
the rabbit has gone round,
yeah,
and the dogs can see the rabbit, but they're still waiting, and
snarling. You can hear them barking.
Gone up, yeah.
Well, read out the comment from Mike.
Yeah, so Mike's channel on our comments. Please unleash hell. Don't hold back. Let's have it raw and realistic. We need to let loose a lot of fan frustration.
Don't worry, Mike, I got you back.
Gary's here for it.
Come on, read some of them out. These people have bothered to write some comments.
No, let's do club news. Let's keep our order. Without rules, there's anarchy.
All right, club news. Alfred Dorrington's gone to Aberdeen on loan. And Daniel Levy, this will set him off. Daniel Levy has increased his stake in the club and valued the club at 3.5
He's increased his stake
billion.
marginally. There's literally no point that I can see in having done it, except for the fact that what he's bought the stake for puts a value on the club of 3.5 million. So that's it. That's all that needs to be said.
Billion,
make of that
3.5
billion. Sorry, make of that what you will. Let's move on. Let's get to it.
All right. Arsenal 2, Tottenham Hotspur 1. Line-up thus. Kinski in goal. Porro, Dragusin, Gray, Spence, Sarr, Bissouma, Bergval, Kulusevski, Solanke, Son. We talked about, we weren't sure who'd be in the midfield. I think the only real discussion was Bergval or Maddison.
Yeah.
And it was Bergval who played well.
Yeah.
But I think it's becoming clear, kind of skirted around this for a while. Don't think those two get on, Maddison and Ange. I think it's a problem.
It's conjecture. I think it's just like more the fact that he is apparently still nursing that ankle injury or whatever injury it was and can't complete the minutes and can't quite play at the intensity that's needed. I don't think it's necessarily a personal issue.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a personal issue. Also, on the lineup, I know it was the lineup. My first thought when I saw the lineup was you, Gary.
Ah,
because this is the lineup that you predicted.
Yeah, I thought it was the right lineup. I can't argue with the lineup at all. I thought it was the right players that we had available, the right players on the pitch. Like, no issues with the starting lineup. A lot of issues with how we played.
I didn't like it, to be honest, and I said it on.
What didn't you like, Maddison?
Not Maddison per se, but so either Maddison or Kulusevski playing as the 10. I said this the other day that Bergval looks to be a very accomplished player on the ball, but we never signed him as a 10. So who in that midfield three is playing as a 10? Especially in a game like that, where obviously the team that you're up against is going to be very technically very good, really at it. I just feel that you need someone. I felt before the game, you need either Kulusevski or Maddison, who is really sharp on the ball, really gets amongst it, really gets on the ball, and in that kind of pocket area supporting Solanke. That was my fear, that Bergval is fantastic as an 8 or maybe a 6, or definitely as a 6, as we saw. Where's the 10 in that system? Don't know. That's just what I felt.
Fair.
I did say that on Monday.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, and it was not a lineup that I would want to see against lesser teams for that reason. But I didn't have a problem with the lineup itself, just because I felt that it was a good, solid team that was protecting the defence a bit more, giving us a bit more stability and foundation. And to be fair, it kind of did for the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. But when we can get into it and where the issues actually came, where do you want to start?
Well, just a little line on the lineup. 5 players for Spurs, 1 for Arsenal, Lewis Skelly. 5 players for Spurs playing in their first ever North London derby. Kinski, Spence, Gray, Dragusin and Bergval. I mean, what a place,
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just felt that you wanted either a Maddison or a Kulusevski to kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck, which Bergvall, I haven't seen. I sort of seen it in fits and stuff, but he's had one or two really good games for us. Like Bissouma doesn't grab games by the scruff of the neck. Sarr's not. That's not his game either. And experience, a bit of something a bit different, a bit extra. There's three very similar players in midfield.
We're definitely blessed with good midfielders, but we still need that 10. In terms of Gaz, where do you want to start? I've said it the last few weeks, especially when we lose. I don't want to go through every moment, every goal, fine-tooth comb. We started very much on the back foot. They were always going to come at us, but there were a lot of corners, but didn't really have a chance. But a chance for Arsenal now is a corner. I mean, that's literally it's joke, but actually what they're playing for now is set pieces. It's ugly. They are reincarnated Stoke City. So we rode out the storm and we got back in the game.
Are you saying substitute Arteta for Tony Pulis, David Moyes, Sam Allardyce, Sean Dyche?
They've obviously got better players. I don't want to talk about them, but they're ugly to watch. We rode the storm. We had a good 10 minutes, forced a couple of corners ourselves, and ironically, we scored from a set piece after 25 minutes, and 15 minutes later, we're 2-1 down. We don't need to go in too much of the ins and outs of the game. Ultimately, Gaz, we've lost another football match. It's 1 win in 9 in the league. It's a major, major problem now.
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, you can't take 5 points from 27 at any point. I think that's okay. I mean, in talking about the game last night, I didn't have too much of a problem with how we started. Yes, they were going to come at us. Yes, we weathered the storm, limited them to, I think,
we rode through it
comparatively little. My only issue with how we started was it's all well and good as long as we're aggressive and fast and clinical on the break and we hurt them.
Do you know that Solanke didn't have a touch in their half in the first half?
Is that right?
Yeah.
As the game went on from 20 minutes on, we actually did start to do that. We had the Spence cross, which was
great,
a world-class cross, and absolute world-class.
He's better than all of our wingers, isn't he, at the moment?
That
cross was
delicious,
unbelievable, and that was taking the game to them, carrying the game to them. So my view on it was, if we keep doing that, if we keep trying to drive at them, when Sarr drove, and you could see that Partey didn't want any part of it, didn't want to be involved. Sarr went booming straight past him. I was thinking, okay, fine. As long as we continue to soak it up, but then we do that, we hurt them, we go at them, we run at them with the legs that we've got, then I don't mind this performance at all. And then, Kulusevski's got that chance that he should score, and then we do go 1-0 up. What then happened after going 1-0 up was an absolute disgrace. Nothing short of a disgrace. Because we did nothing. We did nothing. Didn't have another shot on target, I don't think. For the whole game.
Didn't have it the whole game, no.
The whole game. Scored, yeah. We didn't have a shot on target after going 1-0 up. We didn't look like scoring. We didn't hurt them. We didn't try to hurt them. It was the most insipid, passive, pathetic performance I've seen. And as I say, the first 15 minutes, it was like that, but I was like, okay.
Ride it out.
And as long as we sort of hurt them when we get it, fine. But then what happened after we went 1-0 up was we just reverted to sitting in and doing absolutely nothing else. So it was disgraceful.
There's a talk about the players we're missing, and it's pretty much defenders. Yeah, Bentancur's out and Odebear, fine, but we don't know much about Odebear really. He would certainly have helped in terms of rotation if he was fit. So the defenders are out, but actually, in the last few weeks through this run, all right, yeah, Liverpool scored 6 and Chelsea scored 4, but I'm actually like, okay, the defence is the defence. I'm starting to worry actually that we're not creating chances. We went 120 minutes against Tamworth with barely creating a chance.
Correct.
Arsenal, we created 2 chances in the first 25 minutes, and then, like you just said, we didn't have another shot on target after that. Liverpool, Liverpool was great 1-0. We played pretty well, but actually starting to concern me now that actually the problems are going forward.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the problems have been. I mean, I wouldn't say the goals have dried up.
No, they haven't. But we're not. What this Ange ball was supposed to be, and we've got the attacking players are playing. I know some people will say the problem is also
I think it's tricky.
Dragusin is playing. He can't break the press with his pass. He's like Romero will pass through the lines, and that gets us away. I understand that, but
I know Ange wasn't happy afterwards. But if you think about it, since the Liverpool game, where obviously we were like the Red Sea, parting and letting the Liverpool team through. we haven't conceded that many goals. I know we haven't won that many games, but
up until yesterday, Jake, we had the best away defence in the league. Incredibly.
This is the thing. This is where I can't work it out, because I think on the face of it, we weren't played off the park by us. I understand what you're saying. No, I don't agree with that. Like possession-wise, it was about 48-52. No, is that right?
But what did we do? We didn't do anything with the ball.
Possession.
Second half, when he made these substitutions at half time, he takes off Sarr and Bissouma, and he brings on Maddison and Johnson. And essentially, we're playing with Bergvall in the 6, right? Mm-hmm. So we've now got two 10s on, basically, having had none, more or less, at the start. And we're all thinking, this is going to go one of two ways here. It didn't really go either. Bergvall basically ran the second half in midfield on his own.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And we didn't really create much. So somewhere along, I know Andrew was pissed off after the game, but we didn't look at any danger in the second half. We didn't create anything in the second half.
I think Arsenal just had us at arm's length.
Maybe, but then they are Arsenal at home. They're a good side. They're one of the best sides. I think they're still probably the second best side in the Premier League.
You know what the problem is? You've gone 1-0 up, right? In a really tough away game. You're 4 minutes away from half time. You're 4 minutes away from that stadium becoming pretty toxic.
Yeah.
Right? 4 minutes away from them being under huge pressure. And, we couldn't wait to give them free kicks. We couldn't wait to give them corners.
We didn't give them a corner, did we? Let's not let you know.
No, but we did. It wasn't a corner. You're right. It wasn't a corner. But look at how many corners we did give them. You give them that many corners, they're going to get one. They've scored, I think, 4 set pieces against us in the last 3 times we've played them. And we, the first 30 seconds of the game, Spencer's climbing on somebody's back and giving them a free kick.
Yeah. We're not smart. We're not smart.
But we got a lot of young. That's what happens when you have a lot of young players, isn't it?
And I'm not having a go at Spencer here, because he was actually one of our better players last night. But the point is, you're right. It wasn't a corner. But you're 4 minutes away. That is the time that a team has got to step up. There's got to be some leadership on the pitch.
But who though?
But that's the point, right? Is that
then who? Then so we okay. So is this a players thing or is this a manager's thing?
It's a manager's thing.
But the manager can't make a leader on the pitch.
Why not?
Because you can't because it doesn't. You can't. Like how?
If
Declan Rice is a leader, he's not a leader because Mikel Arteta's made him a leader. He's a leader because he's a leader.
There was a comment that struck me in the first half from one of the commentators when Kinski passed it, I think, into Spence, who had 3 men around him. And I think it was Rio Ferdinand said, sometimes the players on the pitch have got to just ignore the instructions from the manager and see what's going on.
Well, we had this against Man United when Forster kept passing it out.
Clip it over the first press, right? He said, you can see as players, that's the first press. Clip it over, get out. And he said, you've got the perfect target man up front in Solanke, who was up against 2 of the biggest bullies of centre-backs in the Premier League. I think they're actually, I hate to say it, they're outstanding, those 2, right? But you've got Solanke there. Get it into his chest, right? You've got to ignore the manager. But the fact that Kinski's played that ball into Spence says everything to me. Absolutely everything. It was a terrible ball to have played, and he's playing it because in their heads all the time is, this is the way we need to play, mate. This is the way we need to play. We were inviting problems, and 4 minutes out from going into half time with a really good lead and something to build on.
Okay, so
we're just as soft as hell.
But you're saying that you're saying you need leaders, but you're also saying they're listening to the manager. Somebody needs to step up. And not
because on the pitch you need a general.
Who is that?
Well, this is controversial. For me, someone like Højbjerg, or maybe we know that his ability.
Yeah, but he's not there. So who's there?
But we haven't replaced that sort of.
But is that on the manager?
Well, this is the wider conversation from top to bottom. What's going on? But what's going on, Jake, is we've got 1 win from 9 in the Premier League. We've got 5 points from those 27 games. We've got 11 defeats, which is our most defeats after 21 games in a Premier League season. Only in 2 Premier League seasons have we had fewer points than 24 at this stage in a Premier League season. One was 08-09, and we had 2 out of 2 from, was it 2 points, 8 games? And we managed to get up to that, and I think 98-99 was another season where we had such a terrible start. So, this is rare for us, and managers have been sacked for less.
98-99 was the other one.
Gary,
what happened at the end of 99?
Yeah, we won the League Cup. Gary, Shots Guys here on our comments says, Jonathan Liu on The Guardian has been spot on about Ange from the start.
Yeah.
Jonathan Liew, if you want to go and see it, he wrote an article in The Guardian today about last night, but also Spurs in a wider context. Guys, just give us a little bit of a summary of that article, because you made a good point to me earlier off air.
Jonathan Liew sort of prefaced his article with Pedro Porro's shot in the 93rd minute or whatever it was that hit the outside of the post, and it was a speculative, just like whether he meant it, whether it was a cross, whatever. And he made the point, this Tottenham team looks to have the potential to be a very good team.
Which you've been saying.
Which I've been saying, and I completely agree. And he literally said, close to being
some games.
It's close to being a very, very good team. If that shot from Porro goes in, does that mean that Spurs are a good team, or are they still pretty rubbish with, one more point from 9 games, as it were? And he said, and it's the fine margins like that are really difficult to sort of break down and decipher with Tottenham. I think that I'm sort of paraphrasing somewhat. And I sort of take a look at it like this. I agree with Jonathan entirely. I've been saying we're very close to being a good team. And my views on it is this. I had attributed that earlier in the season to Ange. I'm not sure I do now. I'm not sure I do attribute that to being Ange. I think I attribute that to us having very good players. And we do. We have very, very good players. Yeah. I think this is a squad that sits somewhere between 4th and 7th, at the least 7th, right? At the least. I don't think anybody at the beginning of the season looks at this squad and says we're lower than 7th, okay?
No
and I think most people would look at it and say probably 5th, okay? So we've got very good players, and I'm wondering now if actually, it wasn't Ange, but the players that are so close to being very good, and this so close to being a very good team, but are now being held back by Ange, because Jonathan Liew spoke about the margins of fate, as it were, and what makes 1 goal defeats. He mentioned all our defeats have been by 1 goal, and if we'd have scored the odd goal here or the odd goal there, would we be a good team? I put it to Jonathan Liew and anybody else this: if the person in the squad that Ange has most mistreated, which is Jed Spence, hadn't scored or hadn't done what he'd done against Coventry, would Ange still be here now? Because at the moment, Ange is hanging on because of the Carling Cup. If Tamworth had scored in the 92nd minute, which they very easily could have done, Jonathan Liew's talking about a speculative shot hitting the outside of the post, changing narratives. Tamworth could have scored in the 93rd minute of that game. If either of those two things had happened, he'd be gone. He wouldn't be here. This would be now untenable. There would be no excuses. There would be no coming back from going out the cup to Tamworth. He wouldn't be in a semi-final with a 1-goal lead against Liverpool in the League Cup, but for Jed Spence, who ironically has saved his backside. Right? Those are the margins that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Those are the margins with which he is clinging on.
Yeah. And
we're talking about a squad, injuries or not, there is minimum. Robert says to me that he thinks I'm vastly overrating the squad. I don't think so, Robert. Forest are 3rd in the league.
Can I jump in on this? Can I jump on this? This is something I've been banging a drum for a couple of weeks now, and it brings me to a point. Gary, you're spot on, by the way, about the margins. It so easily could have gone the other way, and I think he's clinging on. A guy on Twitter, Dave.
But we weren't saying this after 10 games last season when we won those games in the 90th
Stop
minute.
with the 10 games. Stop it. We're talking 14 months ago.
I don't care, but you can't attribute that to him. And we're so good we play to the end, and we've scored these late goals because we don't stop running, and that's what Ange has got out of us. And then when it goes the other way, say, well, we could have just as easily. But you can't. Like it suits your argument at one point and then doesn't suit it another time.
I don't see last season's 10 games now of any relevance whatsoever.
But in terms of winning, like late goals and that kind of thing,
I think it's gone.
Well, when was the last time we scored a late goal?
We haven't.
But tell me the latest goal. What is the latest goal we scored this season?
Game-changing goal.
The latest game-changing goal. With Johnson against City, yes. What is the latest game-changing? That's the only goal that I can think of in the 80th to 90th minute. What is the latest game-changing goal we scored this season?
Bergvall against Liverpool. All right, in the Prem, I'm going to give you. You can speak. Argue amongst
the point
yourself.
is, when I'm saying that when we were doing it last season, and because we did it on we did it 3 or 4 times. We were saying it wasn't a coincidence at this point. This is the new way we're playing. This is down to the manager. This is what is instilled in the squad.
The answer is none. In the Prem this season, we've not scored a late game.
Can
I just talk about the squad? Can I talk about the squad? A guy on Twitter, there's probably a common name on Twitter, Dave THFC. Buying mid-table players from mid-table clubs and have an unproven nobody as manager, you are what you eat. I kind of agree with him on the manager, but buying mid-table players from mid-table clubs. Look, if I read out the team at the start, the squad at the start of the season, and I was reading you without knowing, the Bournemouth squad and the Nottingham Forest squad, people would say, these people who are blaming Levy for everything are going to tell you, who are those players? Why are we signing him from Bristol City, Semenyo? Who's that guy Milenkovic? Never heard of him. Who's that guy Aina? He failed at Fulham. I don't want these players in my team. You read the Bournemouth and Forest squad to a Spurs fan at the start of the season, they'll tell you this is rubbish. Elliot Anderson, who's been brilliant this season. I don't want those players at my club.
Nico Williams.
Exactly. These guys are so well coached. I have a theory that most Premier League footballers are Premier League footballers because they're bloody good footballers.
That's not a theory, it's fact.
Yeah, that bit's the theory. You've got your elite players, your Salahs, your Haalands, or whatever, who are up there. And you've got some players who are really bad who are down there. But mostly, you've probably got 80% of footballers who are basically the same ability. Some are just better coached than others. And right now, our players. You can argue, Ollie will argue with you, Gary, Jake, you might argue with Gary, you might argue with me about this player, that player, that player. Ultimately, we have a squad of pretty much starting international footballers who are totally miscoached. And I'm going to say it, no more Ange sort it out. If he goes today, I actually had a feeling he might go today, but I think he is still clinging on to the League Cup because Levy doesn't want to sack another manager before a League Cup, and it's a semi-final this time, not a final. I think that's hanging over him. Done with it. I don't think he can get us out of this, even if the players come back. Because when the players do come back, we still lost, drawn with Leicester, lost to Palace, lost to Ipswich. Just don't think he can sort it out. That's me off my soapbox.
I do think I think another thing that could be, probably is saving him is the injuries, because I don't think at this point, I don't think that's why they would. I think
say that again. Sorry.
No, I think the injuries is saving him, because I don't think they would sack him.
No,
at this point.
I think that could be. I think that could be.
Yeah, it's a red herring. I'm sorry, it's a red herring at this point. Okay.
I don't think it is, and I'll tell you why I don't think it is. Because in the last few games, as I said, where actually in Newcastle, for example, Liverpool, last night, certainly from a defensive point of view, no one's really talked about our defence, and you can't get over the fact that one player out of our back five is playing. Mm. And that's not something that we've... Yeah, but you can't just brush over that, Gary.
My point, I made the point that we still lost to Ipswich and Palace with these players in.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But I'm talking about... So now we're on this run that's carried on and on. But the last 4 or 5 games, obviously it's made it worse.
But
I think there's a lot to...
But Romero
take
and Van der Ven did play against Palace, right?
Yeah.
If it was the case that
we were...
But if it was the case that we were putting teams away, the teams that we should be putting away, with our full strength team, then maybe it mitigates a little bit. And of course, you do have to sort of mitigate a little bit that, yes, you're right, we've got these injuries. You've still got Dragushin, who is a international centre-back, very highly rated. Bayern Munich were after him. Okay, they bought Eric Dyer, so I don't know what that says. But Bayern Munich were after him. We were very happy when we got him. You've still got, a defence out there, and you've just got to get on with it. And the reality of it is...
But it's harder than that,
but the reality of it is that our problems with injuries are actually at the back. They're not at this moment so much in the front line or midfield, right? And Ange ball is all meant to be about the front line and midfield and tearing teams apart. And as Johnny said, we're not doing that. We're not creating chances. I don't mind us sitting back. I've got no problems with it as long as we are clinical and aggressive when we do have the ball and brave on it.
That Liverpool performance was almost perfect.
That was the picture-perfect performance, right? But
for that game, that necessity.
And I was happy for us to do that again last night, and that's what I thought we were going to do. Yeah. And that's what we were doing. We rode out the storm the first 15 minutes. But, how we play, whether we are full-on attacking or a bit more defensive, is really immaterial right now. The issue is that since November of last year, our form is bad. I think our form since November of last year is about 1.3 points a game.
In 2024 or 2023? This season or last season?
From Chelsea last season through to now, I think our form is about 1.3 a game. That is verging borderline relegation.
We're on for 43 points this season, guys, if you average out.
And that is fit squad, not fit squad. And Joe made the comment on our comments here. This par for this squad is 6th. I entirely agree with that. Par for this squad is 6th. I think a good manager, a proper manager that earns his crust, gets us 4th or 5th, right? And people are having a go at me recently on comments. They think I'm turning against Ange. Yes, I am turning against Ange. I don't have to sit here and support him, and that has to be my de facto position. What I am seeing now is not good enough. When you've got Ange in press conferences saying this level of performance is unacceptable, he is right. It is unacceptable, and it sits with him. The number of injuries we have, Jake, is unacceptable. And that sits with him, okay? And if he's sitting there saying the first 20 minutes, is on me, I prepared the team. Well, you clearly haven't prepared the team. You haven't done your job. You're not doing your job. When was the last time you did do your job? So as to the Ange in, Ange out, I can only go back to what I said a couple of weeks ago, which is I couldn't care less. I couldn't give a toss at this point. If I got a notification on my phone saying Ange is gone, fine, don't care. Because I support Tottenham Hotspur, I don't support Ange.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care who's our manager, as long as they're right for Tottenham Hotspur. And somebody picked me up on this. I think you're racist because you don't support Ange. Right? Shut up.
Racist.
This is not born out of racism, right? I've got no view on Levy because of race. I've got no view on Basuma because of race. I want what is best for Tottenham Hotspur. Basuma ain't best for Tottenham Hotspur. I don't think Levy is either. And I don't think Ange is, right? And that's not because of anything of their nationality, religion or race. Yeah. That is because they're not good enough for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Yeah. So if Ange came through and it was sacked right now, fine by me. If Ryan Mason's the manager until the end of the season, not fine by me. If we hire somebody else tomorrow morning, perfect.
So people say, Gaz, but who else is there?
Don't care.
It's not our job to find out, but there are plenty of adults out there who could do better, in my opinion.
We all knew we needed a number 2 keeper. I don't think anybody said Kinski. I guarantee, it's a little shaky last night, but I guarantee most people are delighted that we have Kinski now. This time last week, nobody had heard of him, but we all knew we needed a number 2 keeper.
Yeah.
It's not our job to know Kinski should be the number 2 keeper and we should go and get him. It's not our job to know who should replace Ange. It's my job to look at what I'm seeing on the pitch, the level of performance, the results, everything going on around it, and go, this is not good enough, and I cannot see signs at this moment of how it becomes good enough.
Jake, in a minute, we're going to be joined by chief football writer from the BBC, Phil McNulty, who was covering the game last night. We're going to carry on this chat with someone looking on the outside, looking in. Phil is also someone who's covered Everton for many, many years. So we're going to move on a little bit to Everton. We'll probably come back to this. But Jake, we've done a little poll on our YouTube feed. Ange in or Ange out? I think a couple of weeks ago we had Ange in, Ange sort it out or Ange out. We've taken out the sort it out. We've literally just gone, right, Ange in or out. Right now it's 46% in and it's 54% out. I think you're leaning towards in still, are you not?
I'm in, yeah, because and it's not. I'm not stupid. I'm not enjoying watching Tottenham at the moment. Yeah. I just think I've said it in the past. I think halfway through a season, or however many games we're in through a season, especially with how we've got on we've still got the Europa League, obviously the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup. I just think an end of a season is a point at which you go, because ultimately, what do we want now? If we get rid of him now,
to stop losing football matches.
Yeah, but
Phil's here. I can see Phil.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, Phil. Can I just jump in on one comment very quickly that Michelle has made about Spurs fans being the problem? If we'd have gone for Iraola from Bournemouth, we'd have all had a fit. Disagree. I think Spurs fans know that Martin Jol, Pochettino have been our best managers. Conte, Mourinho.
Yeah,
we don't need a name.
We don't need a name. Absolutely. Right, we have been joined by Phil. Hi, Phil. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
And we can hear you. Brilliant.
Sorry, Phil. It's a bit emotional.
It's emotional. It's yeah.
It's a bit raw.
I get it.
Phil, chief football writer at the BBC. We're really grateful to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll come to Everton shortly, a team you've worked on for many, many years in your career as a journalist. But we're going to start with Tottenham. We're going to carry on the conversation on the game last night, but also as a whole. I just want to get from outside looking in, how do you see the Tottenham situation at the moment? 1 win in 9, 11 defeats, our joint most at this stage of a Premier League season. How do you see it?
I think an awful lot hinges, and you guys may have discussed it, on the Carabao Cup semi-final. I think if Spurs can somehow get out of that and get to Wembley, then I think things will look a whole lot better. But I think as someone who has watched quite a lot of Spurs over the last couple of years, I think as an outsider, what sort of would frustrate me is the sheer inconsistency that has been going on. But unfortunately now, that has moved towards consistency, and it's consistency of poor results. 6 defeats in the last 10 games. I was there last night, and Arsenal, although they lacked that clinical edge, I felt they were much superior to Spurs, who I felt were very passive. They had that little spell, didn't they, just before they scored. They had a couple of chances when Solanke just couldn't quite get in the end of a cross, and then Raya made a save. But overall, I thought Spurs were, they've got injuries, they have, but I thought they were very passive considering it was a North London derby.
Yeah. No, they were. I think you're absolutely right. if you, I mean, we've seen managerial changes at the club we're about to face, Everton. If you were a Spurs fan right now, Phil, where would you stand? Regardless of the semi-final, where would you stand on Ange based upon what you have seen and your experience of watching this game?
I would leave things as they are for now, but clearly, again, I go back to what I said. I think the cups are vitally important. They've got that Carabao Cup semi-final. They do have the advantage, which I felt they deserved. I mean, people talked about a little bit of fortune, about Bergvall, maybe should he have been on the pitch or not. I thought overall Spurs deserved to win that game. I thought they played very well, considering they had three young players really at the heart of it all. They had the goalkeeper, Hinsky, Archie Gray, who I think is going to be a great signing to Tottenham. When his career develops and he then goes into midfield, his preferred position. And of course, Bergvall himself, I felt they really deserved that win against the Liverpool team, who obviously we've seen has been carrying ball before it. And then, of course, there's that cup tie away at Aston Villa. I think that will shape a lot of the thinking. I wouldn't do anything just yet. I don't like the idea of even talking about managers getting the sack. It's just not something, I really like doing. I think Spurs, for now, should keep faith, but obviously, reality dictates that a lot hinges on those cup ties.
Phil, I know that Jake wants to ask you a question, but let me just throw very quickly at you. Tamworth could have knocked us out of the cup in the 93rd minute. If that had happened, would that have altered your thinking? It easily could have happened.
I think it might well have done, yes. I think it's hard for any manager who is struggling with results to survive a knockout by a non-league team in the FA Cup. But they got through it.
Yeah.
And I know, people expect Tamworth to be knocked. I don't want to sound particularly like an Ange apologist, but, people do expect Premier League teams to knock these teams over 7-8-9-0 now. And it just doesn't happen that often anymore. The pitch wasn't great, was it? The 3G pitch, but you can't get away from it. For 90 minutes, Tottenham's performance was pretty lamentable. Yeah. And if that guy had chosen to pull the ball back rather than shoot in the final seconds, or the guy had not scuffed his shot, then it would have been tears all round, I think. And clearly, Daniel Levy's patience would have been tried, and history suggests he hasn't got a lot of patience. But they're through. Once it went to extra time, I thought, well, Spurs will win now because greater fitness kicks in. They'd thrown on the big guns, hadn't they? Kulusevski and Son had come on, and Solanke had come on a bit earlier. I did feel they would win, and in the end, taken in the round of extra time, they did do it quite comfortably. But clearly, there would have been an outcry from Spurs fans, quite rightly, to see an expensively assembled Premier League team knocked out by a non-league team in the FA Cup. But to go back to your original question, I would just keep calm for now, but realise that there is a lot riding on that the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. But you can't get away from what a poor season it's been in the league. I mean, is it 14 points off Newcastle in fourth? And I think at the start of the season, having gone on with what went before last season, I think Spurs fans would have realistically and quite rightly said, well, there's a chance for us to qualify for the Champions League this season because we've seen one of those strange seasons in flux, haven't we? Liverpool have been consistent, but beneath that, Arsenal, Manchester City, Chelsea, Villa, they've all been inconsistent. So the opportunity has been there, but Spurs just haven't taken it.
No.
Let's move on then, shall we, Phil, to the weekend's game. Obviously, you've covered Everton and clubs up in that part of England a lot. A new manager at the helm. We've already heard David Moyes saying that the striker situation is wearing him down already, and he's only been in the job 4 or 5 days.
Been there 3 days.
Yeah, exactly. Where do things stand before we get on to the game? Where do things stand then, as far as they're concerned? Are they going to be able to bring anyone in for starters?
I think they can bring people in. Obviously, they've come through the PSR, but they will have to be careful. They'll have to be very smart in their buying. And we saw last night, I mean, I didn't see the game, but I've watched the highlights since this morning. Calvert-Lewin had 3 big chances, particularly one at the end when really, he should have scored rather than turn that one over the top. And it's just a really chronic problem. They've had 20 league games and scored 15 goals. And there's always that pressure on the defence then, as we saw last night. Once you concede one, and I've been at the ground when that's happened this season, you just get the feeling around the stadium. And you know how stadiums can feel when things go a bit wrong. When Everton go a goal behind, there's this feeling, well, that's it. They won't come back because they just don't score goals. I do think the change had to be made. I think once Dyche has been reported, said, I think I've taken things as far as I can. I think in the situation Everton were in, they had to make a change. The David Moyes appointment, I think, is a sort of a safe hands, sensible appointment. He's very experienced, but you heard from his quotes last night. The cold shower has already come. He's seen him in action now. He said, that telling quote, "They're a great bunch of lads," but he didn't add anything beyond that, really. He has got to get some reinforcements in over the next couple of weeks. But again, very difficult, not a lot of money to spend. And at the moment, if you're a player of a certain quality, you probably wouldn't want to come to Everton because you're stepping straight into a struggle. And I say this, speaking to you guys as Spurs fans, I think they may just fancy their chances a little bit on Sunday.
Not to.
But on the other hand, if Spurs hit their stride, then you can see Spurs scoring goals against Everton. It's going. I'm there on Sunday. It's going to be a really interesting game. I seem to be following Spurs around at the moment. It's almost like an ambulance chase. And I think it'll be a really interesting game. Moyes will want that first win on the board as quickly as possible, and obviously Ange Postecoglou will want to drag Spurs out of this malaise they've got themselves into in the Premier League. When your own manager, as in the case of Ange Postecoglou, says a performance is unacceptable, then really no other words are necessary. He had to take, he took his midfield players off at half time because they weren't doing the job he wanted, which is quite a big thing to do at half time in a derby game, to take your two central midfield players off. But even though Arsenal didn't kill the game off, you never got that feeling that Spurs were going to pull it back unless Solanke's flying overhead kick in the last second was floating in.
Something.
I mean, I have seen those go in, but at the moment it's just not going for Spurs, is it? But I think equally, as I've said, Everton will be confident. I think Spurs will look at Everton and think, well, they're struggling at the moment. Maybe that's our chance to get things back on track.
It's a game that Spurs historically, we seem to be Everton's bogey team. I think we've only taken more points off Man City, strangely, in Premier League history. I've bored people to tears on this pod. My wife's an Evertonian. We went up to the game against Fulham at the end of October, which Everton actually did get back into late on after falling behind that Beto game. But I was sat in the ground and watching the game. I actually came out of the ground and said to my wife and our Everton friend that we went with, "I'll never moan about Ange again." But actually, we lost to Palace the day after, so I did moan about Ange. But I got the feeling
we always moan. We will,
yeah. But I got the feeling that watching that game, Everton were just under Dyche, were just trying to survive, and Moyes has come in, and that'll give everyone a lift. My wife wanted Moyes back. I'm sure a high number of people wanted Moyes back. But how did it tactically? When I watched Everton, not just that day, but Calvert-Lewin seemed so isolated. Will Moyes, Moyes is always, he's not been an attacking manager, he's not been a defensive manager, somewhere in between, but how does he get more goals out of this team?
Well, I think going back to that game you mentioned, Fulham, first of all, it was daylight robbery, really, wasn't it? Because Fulham dominated the whole game and Everton pinched an equaliser at the end. I think what has hurt Everton a little bit is Dwight McNeil's injury. Because Dwight McNeil, even though he hasn't got pace, which is the big flaw in his makeup, if you like, he is a creator. He can create things. And you would look at him from the wing to maybe try and service Calvert-Lewin. I know Calvert-Lewin's had a lot of criticism and his goal record's grim. I don't think he's scored in 16 Premier League games.
No,
but in a lot of those games, he's had no service. So I think what Moyes has got to try and do is somehow try and supply him and hope in doing that his confidence returns, because his confidence at the moment looks shot. We saw that last night. He had 3 presentable chances, didn't take any of them. And he's just very low on confidence. And maybe when you're like that and you're not getting much service, when you do get something, you snatch at it and you don't take it in your normal way. But I think Moyes will try and get more creation in the team. I think he will try and get players out wide because really it's quite an urgent situation that he has to fix there, because if they carry on the way they are, they're not scoring goals, they will lose games. And they've noticed underneath them a little bit that Ipswich Town, who have played this evening, they've started to look quite decent. They've had some decent results recently. I think Wolves will pick up, even though they lost last night under Vitor Pereira, because I do think they have some talented players. So it's something he needs to fix. And I think he will just have to try and somehow, maybe if he goes into the market for the rest of the month, he's got to try and find some sort of supply line for Calvert-Lewin or whoever he chooses to play up front, whether that's Beto, who I don't think has been a great buy for Everton, really. He's got to somehow find a way to get that team scoring goals, and he acknowledged that himself at the end of the game last night.
Phil, very quickly, last question for me, and then I know Johnny's going to want to ask you a prediction because he always does. But I have to ask this. This is of real interest to me. This feels like a really important couple of months for Everton. They have got to survive, haven't they? I mean, you mentioned Ipswich. I think Ipswich are looking good, and if Everton go down with the burden of the new stadium next season, what are the full implications of that for Everton Football Club?
Well, I think financially things are okay now. They've got the new owners who are very wealthy, and at least unlike Farhad Nashiri, have a background in running a football club at AS Roma. Although they've certainly shown how ruthless they are, the way they've dispensed of managers there. So I think financially it's fine, but again, the finance of not being in the Premier League could be a problem if they're out for a while. And also, I think symbolically, relegation for Everton is unthinkable this season because there is this sense of a fresh start with the new owners, the Friedkin Group, and also, of course, there's the new stadium, which is, if you ever get the chance to drive past it,
yeah, it's great.
It is absolutely magnificent. I mean, I personally think Spurs Stadium is the best I've been in. Yeah, I think, apart from maybe the one I went to at Qatar World Cup final, I think the
just losing
Spurs just unbelievable. So I think in some ways relegation is as close to unthinkable this season as it gets.
Yeah. All right. Let's quick prediction then for Sunday. As I say, we do have this strange sign over Everton. How do you see it going?
If you're asking me for a prediction, I think I'm tempted to say 1-1, but also looking at Everton's season, unless they cure things, I would say 0-1, Tottenham 1-0. But if it finished level, it wouldn't surprise me either. But if asked me to pick a winner, I would say Tottenham, maybe by the single goal.
You can come back on with that, Phil. Phil, really,
see if I'm right first.
Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you so much for talking to us. Great to get your insight. Chief football writer for the BBC, Phil McNulty. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Phil.
Cheers, Phil.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, chaps.
Cheers. Bye. Brilliant.
Oh, we'll take that then. Any win,
Any
win, anyhow.
Yeah.
Do you know what? The quality of guests that we get on this show, courtesy of you guys, is something else. It really is.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. Listen, between us, we're lucky to dip into our contacts. Have you sorted
book of contacts?
Have you sorted one for next week yet? This is on you now.
I'm sorting one for next week.
Pre-Hoffenheim.
We've got potentially. He doesn't know it.
We were going to have Archie
coming on.
We were going to have Archie Rintut, who brilliant. If you could follow him on Twitter, snazzy shirts and jackets and jumpers, who works for ESPN in Germany to pre-Hoffenheim. Unfortunately, Archie can't join us.
So you're throwing him under the bus.
Throw him under the bus.
I better not mention who I have coming on, just in case.
But listen, that was great to talk to Phil. I mean, there aren't many more knowledgeable people around in this country on football, so that was great to get his thoughts. Let's just quickly, we'll go back to the Everton game at the end, but to complete our conversation on Ange.
To sum it up,
we sort of looked at it and went, if we lose to Liverpool, which we didn't, if we lose to Arsenal, Tamworth was kind of irrelevant, but actually it was becoming a little bit more relevant the way it happened. Maybe Ange will go. We should beat Everton. I think we will beat Leicester. I think they've 6 defeats in a row. They look pretty poor and very open. I think they'll go down. Phil said it. We said it. Is he cling? I don't think it's enough to cling on to the League Cup, but I kind of think Levy is, because I don't think he wants to sack a manager close to a final or in a final again.
But that's not why Phil said. He said we should, because of the Carabao, but it wasn't anything really to do with whether Levy has the stomach for it or not. I find it very interesting, and I know I would, because I'm kind of agreeing with him. But as I said a couple of weeks ago, there's very few pundits out there and neutrals who actually are saying it feels like it's reached the end of the road. They sort of say he needs to pick up results quickly. Things are. It's not been very good. But when you watch Match of the Day and stuff like that, it doesn't feel as, like with, for example.
Oh, you tell me. You sit in these press conferences. Are they supposed to be sitting on the fence more? Are they going to come out and nail their colours to the Ange in or out mast?
Absolutely, you watch Match of the Day. There's no.
You never really see.
There's no neutrality there.
You never really see a journo going, his time's up. He's got to go.
I'm not talking about journos. I'm talking about guys. I'm talking about ex-footballers who say what the hell they want on TV all the time. Yeah, but I think the written guys may be a bit different, because they, but you watch TV, sports, football all the time, and you hear pundits and ex-players say exactly what they want and what they think. And I think if some of these guys thought that the time was right for him to go, I think they just say it. I don't think some of them have axes to grind against Tottenham, we haven't. I don't think it doesn't feel like we've got to that point yet. And maybe I feel a lot of it is to do with when we're good, these ex-footballers like the way we play when we play well because they would have liked to have played in a team like that kind of thing. I think that's partly part of it. So maybe they have a bit of vested interest the other way.
When are you going to change?
No, I've said I think you need to give him until if not the end of the season, when the season is completely dead on all fronts, because then that's his go and that's it basically.
I think if Levy had a manager that could come in the door tomorrow, I think it'd be gone. I don't think it's anything about not having the stomach to do it. I don't think it's anything about not wanting to do it. I think it is purely about there is no point in doing it unless we have somebody ready to come in. I'm convinced that if we have somebody ready to come in tomorrow, he'd be gone, because there's no reason at this point to keep him. There just isn't. I hope he turns it around. I like what he wants to try to be. But, we live in a world where sporting elite became defined by Sir David Brailsford talking about the 1% gains, right? And those fine margins, which everybody's looking for. I don't see Ange looking for those fine margins. I don't see it. I don't see in any way. You made such a great point to me earlier.
Such a great point, you can't remember it.
No, I remember the point. Brentford manager
Thomas Frank
playing against City. I think you made this point to me. He was asked, you said, why Damsgaard in the 10? You haven't played him there before. And he said, because I studied City, and I just felt the way that Damsgaard plays, the spaces in there, he could hurt them, and he ended up doing that. I don't see Ange doing that.
Yeah,
I just don't see those, and I don't want Thomas Frank, by the way. But every manager before we played Chelsea, Enzo Maresca said against this team we had to play in this way and adapt a little bit. Against that team we had to play in that way and adapt a little bit. Not changing our philosophy, not changing who we are, but you have to adapt according to the opposition.
People are going to tell you we have changed because we sat in against Wolves and we sat in against this one and we sat in against that one. There have been potential minor tweaks, but not enough.
No, I just don't see it. I can't see a defence for Ange at this moment.
I'm sorry, can I just say, that's not true, because we're not playing, in the last few weeks, we haven't been playing this harebrained, all gung-ho, all attacking football that we were playing before, that we said needed to change and needed to be tweaked.
I think Liverpool broke him in that regard.
Well, but so there has been a change. There has 100% been a change there. Like last night, we weren't that open.
You say that, Jake. We got at 1-0. If you look at the goal that we gave away for the 2-1 goal, Bissouma gives the ball away facing his own goal. There's a little clip where he should have dropped it into Spence, whatever. Porro is standing in the opposition half, Spence is in the opposition half, and Bissouma's faced up, facing his own goal with 3 Arsenal players and 2 Spurs defenders.
Yeah, he could have booted it back to the goalie. The goalie's fantastic with his feet. That's half the point.
Sorry,
I don't think he's not good enough. He's not good enough to play under high pressure in that position, I don't think.
That's semantics, but...
No, it's not. It's not semantic. How is it semantics?
But in that moment,
it's a fact.
You're looking at, okay, whatever. That's a small moment.
And
in
also,
the game.
that's a player error. That's the system, yes, okay, but then what comes first? Do you need better players to play in the system you want, or do you need...
No, because I cite Forest and Bournemouth, and Fulham, and
so therefore, what if you've got the system that you have, adapt and play according to the players you have? Is that what you'd rather?
Well, I think
he should play. In which case, he shouldn't have been put in this job. It's not even his fault.
There's an argument to say that, and
that's another reason why they want to give him more time, because they want to allow the squad to evolve with him. There's
a wider conversation there, because Ange Ball probably needs great players, all fit at the right time, and all play square pegs, square holes. We don't have that. We don't have that luxury of. We don't sign those players. That's another conversation. But we certainly at the moment have got square pegs, round holes, and some of that's down to him.
I don't think when everyone's fit, there's many square pegs in. Who's playing out of position when everyone's fit?
But then you're never always going to have everybody fit. Football doesn't work like that anymore. But then he needs to adapt more to the situations of injuries, suspensions, and we're not doing it. We're just constantly losing football matches or not winning football matches, Jake. And it's 1 win in 9 in the Premier League. I've done all the stats.
Don't read them again.
Don't read them again.
I think somebody's asked on the group if I could take any manager employed or not right now, who would it be? For me, it's not about a name. I don't know enough about all the Serie A managers, La Liga managers, the Portuguese managers, the South America. I don't know enough about them. What I can give you is a profile. I want a manager that has the same principles and philosophies as Ange, which is aggressive, front foot football, possession-based, high pressing. I like that. That's what I do like about Ange, and that's why I want him to succeed. That's how I want to see Tottenham playing, and I want to see managers that follow that style.
Yeah.
But who are more tactically adept than I believe Ange to be, who are better coaches at this moment than I believe Ange to be, who are not going to run their players into the ground, as I believe Ange has, who are going to give their players the chance, as he didn't, to the likes of Spence. If I was to throw a name around, I really like McKenna at Ipswich. Everything I hear about him is really positive. I like the idea of a young, progressive manager in the style of a Pochettino.
Iraola gives me Poch vibes.
Iraola. I really like Julian Nagelsmann. I don't know necessarily about character and personality.
You're not getting him out of Germany.
But I like him.
I don't think
but he's asking me. He's asking me about the names,
profile,
right?
yeah.
It is that sort of. Somebody said you're describing Poch. Yeah, I don't think Poch anymore. Actually, I don't think he's quite there. But I really like McKenna at Ipswich. Sorry, Ipswich fans, but that's the kind of profile that I would love to see. And I think that's the kind of profile that you can get behind. And everything you hear about that guy, everybody that you speak to says on the pitch they haven't seen a better trainer, a better coach, how innovative he is. And for him to be doing the job that he's doing at Ipswich says a hell of a lot. I disagree completely with the comment that was made earlier. Spurs fans are the problem because if we had an Areola, we'd complain. Not true at all. Spurs fans, our biggest successes over the last 20 years have been with managers that were unknowns. Martin Yole, Poch, and even a Harry Redknapp, who people turn their nose up at because he'd been at smaller clubs, came in and did a great job for us, right? Because he wanted to play that Tottenham way, that aggressive sort of football. That's the profile I want. That's why I want Ange to succeed. But I'm not seeing that he's got the wherewithal to achieve it.
I think that's it. I don't think if not one Spurs fan doesn't want to see Ange succeed, but at the moment it's simply not happening. Yes, we're in every cup, but we're obviously still in the Europa League because it hasn't finished yet. We're actually in a lower position than we should be. We're in the 9th to 6th, whatever, 9 to 500 zone, whatever it is, with so many teams. We're in the FA Cup, because we've played Tamworth and scraped through that. And
the fact is, we're not getting any of these managers out of their clubs in the middle of the season. So if you want any of these guys, that's another.
Which
reason.
is possibly going back to Gary's point of, well, if he knew he had somebody lined up.
But if he knew, I think if Levy knew that tomorrow morning McKenna would walk in the door, then I think Ange would be gone. I think that's the only thing that is saving Ange right now. That it's better than Ryan Mason.
The point that I'm making is that any manager at a Premier League club right now is not going to walk away from the. As I said a couple of weeks ago, it's not like the old days. The gap between being in the Premier League is where it's at. So if you've got your team up there like a Kieran McKenna, you don't need to jump ship mid-season, do you? Like, they're not going to throw. The money's not such a disparity anymore that he's going to be wowed with all these millions that he can't.
No, but someone like McKenna,
he's not going to leave Ipswich having got them up from League One.
I don't know, because he
may
midway
through a season.
He's got Tottenham connections.
Yes.
This may be his only chance.
Correct.
It could be his only chance, Jake.
Midway through a season. It's just, when was the last time that happened?
And this sort of comment, any manager worth his salt would not go near Spurs. I couldn't disagree with that more. I think any manager worth his salt.
Who said that?
Paddy Hartnett. I think any manager worth his salt would see Tottenham as the opportunity to be that manager that comes in and has a club that is structured and built to go and achieve success. And you can say what you like about Levy and so on. We have got the infrastructure, we have got the capability to go and be huge. And if you are that manager that goes and does something with Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, then you stamp your name into history and you go and take any job in the world that you want from there. I think it is a great job particularly an up-and-coming manager.
I also think that... I think it's not like the old days where I think mid-season it just doesn't really happen.
The general consensus on here is if you approach McKenna, he would come. Quite
frankly, there are too many messages coming in for us to even be able to read. So that's
the old video printer.
I know, literally, because they go up and they disappear.
Yeah.
You need Jeff Stelling in order to come in to be able to
J Max says, big up, I've missed the first hour because I was tuning into Dr. Fraser Crane's show. Yeah, well, there's therapy here too.
Let me ask you guys.
Us too, or the comments?
You two, and people that would wish to comment. I don't think a win against Everton changes much for us.
Of course it doesn't.
If, however, we lose to Everton, then where are people then? How close are people now to saying enough is enough?
Do you know my answer to that is, and I kind of agree with Phil McNulty, not that I agree it should be the case, but I agree with Phil McNulty that...
Do you agree with them or not?
Yeah, we're a week away from the second leg of the semi-final, which I think we'll probably lose.
Surprising.
I think we don't know about Everton. I think we beat Leicester and I think we lose to Liverpool. I think we'll know a lot more after that. I think even if he loses to Everton,
we've also got Europa in the meantime.
That's
as well.
true. I think have you got that guest on for it yet?
He's coming on.
He's coming on. Does he know?
He doesn't.
I think even if we lose to Everton, he stays.
I just want to pick up on one comment was much earlier, but it was spot on, and because I think we're wrapping up in a minute.
Yeah.
Spot on. When we get our centre backs back, right, or even just one of them, either one of Van de Ven or Romero to play with Dragushin, the very first move that I would make between now and the rest of the season is playing Bergvall and Gray midfield together. No more Bissouma, Bentancur, whatever. Bergvall and Gray the starting two, because those two are superstars, and we have to build around
They
them.
were
We didn't
fantastic.
really
Let's
get
positive
speak about it.
Positives from last
Him
night.
playing on his own in the six, because there was no other six back when Madison and Kulusevski are on.
Yeah.
I could not believe it. He absolutely bossed it. And yes, people say Arsenal sat back a bit in the second half, but he really impressed me.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I said this after the Liverpool game. When your best players on the pitch, when the players that are driving you are Gray, Bergvall, and Spence, right? Like, you know, when those are your best players, that's a sad indictment on the team as a whole. Another sad indictment on the team as a whole is actually what Phil said. You know, that the whole league has been inconsistent. You've got Forest in third place. That Arsenal team, which for me isn't a good Arsenal team. We've seen much better Arsenal teams than this.
Yeah.
In second place, Newcastle so inconsistent in third or fourth. This is not a good league. That poor Arsenal team, and I think they are not a good Arsenal team, are in second place, is an indictment on the league. That we are 14th in this terrible league is an indictment on Ange.
Yeah. All right. I've got to go in a minute.
Got a couple of shout outs.
Go on.
One is, you'll never guess that on one of the Tottenham groups that I'm in, there's a guy, Ads, who I'm assuming is Adam, who used to live in England. He now lives in Cyprus. He runs a salon in Cyprus. And who should pop in to get his hair chopped?
Gus Poyet, is he still the manager of... He was out that way.
Oh, that's a good guess.
Not Martin Yole.
That would be funny, wouldn't it? No, Mido.
I got told I looked like Mido.
Well,
Was it more that?
Oh, was that? No, it was all the goal scoring.
he's got a beard. He's got a beard these days. He popped in.
Oh, I love
Get him on the
Mido.
show.
I love
Oh,
Mido.
I
Apparently
fancy a bit of
one of
that.
his sons plays professionally in Cyprus.
All
so
right.
he
Anybody,
pops in
if
and out.
anybody in the comments, well, actually, I say I don't need it. I need you, Jake. Get Mido. Hashtag get Mido on.
Get Mido on in the
I would
comments.
love to have Mido.
And also, I've got another one. We've had a few guys follow us on Instagram in the last few days, and one guy messaged Nedge the postman. So hello. He said he listens every week, and he absolutely loves us.
Okay. All right, I love that.
That's
love
it.
that. Yeah. All right, we're going to go. I've got to get predictions for the Blaine Derby on Sunday.
Just but before, did you think the poll would be as close as
That's a
that?
good point, Jake. The poll has ended up with Ange in 46%, out 54%.
I'm astonished.
Yeah, so
It's interesting though, isn't it?
weighted towards our Aussie listeners, maybe, who we love, by the way. And I'm scared.
Sydney Duke,
I'm
did you
scared
vote
that if
twice?
I'm scared that yeah, he's multiple logins. I'm scared. I'm scared that if Ange goes, we lose a lot of our fan base. Stay with us if Ange goes.
So we'll be on the Koreans next.
Jake Robson, Everton v Tottenham Hotspur. Predict the football match, please.
3-1 Tottenham.
3 goals. Though. Gary, do it.
If Tottenham don't turn up, Everton will win. If Tottenham turn up, Spurs will win.
Yeah, I
It's
think
quite as simple as that.
I think we're going to win.
That's a rubbish
I
prediction.
think we're going to win. And by the way,
but I mean, what do you want me to do? The only consistency we've had at the minute is crap performances. Play like that, Everton could well win.
just want to finish on a comment from a few people.
No,
said
I'm
it.
not the only one that's giving a score here. We do this every week.
I said Spurs are going to win.
I'll be positive. I think
2-0.
I think so. I was going to say
Clean sheet Hotspurs.
I was going to say 3-1 Tottenham, right? But
there you go.
it could just as easily be 1-0 to Everton.
I've got to comment on a guy called Stephen Silver, who's a friend of mine in Australia, by the way, who's also an Everton fan, who's just said Ange forever, so he's trolling me. But Steve is an Everton fan from Australia. Quite a lot of Everton fans in Australia love the whole Cahill thing.
Stephen Silver, he's just messaged. Forever.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, he's a friend of yours, is he? Friend of the show.
A few people have said Edin Terzic. From my understanding, is that he loses a dressing room quite quickly. He wasn't that popular at Dortmund, even though he got them to the final. All right, I'm done. Got to go. Got to get home. Stuff to do.
You've also been outed by Stephen Silver. Blaine loves Ange and Teletext.
Teletext is the name of the WhatsApp group that we're in.
Right. I thought he was trying to show your age there.
I do not love Ange. Okay. I know the comments are still flowing, which means you obviously want us to stay on, but
Gotta go.
gotta go. We will be back on Monday with Jake's unknown special guest to preview Hoffenheim, and we'll look back on Everton. You've got some work to do to sort that, Jake. Gary, I don't know if we're seeing you on Monday. Got to talk to you about that.
What? Oh, something you want to tell us?
Something more important in his diary.
Are we going to have a live sacking?
Kieran McKenna in this chair on.
Never
on
mind
Monday.
the Colosseum. You've got a live sacking on an Echo of Glory.
All right.
You're going to go like this.
I'm there with Gary, but if he can't come in, I'm there.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. We're going to beat Everton on Sunday because it's what we do. It's who we are. We just beat Everton. All right, gentlemen, we'll see you on Monday with Jake's special guest. Look forward to that, and we'll see you soon and up the Spurs.